you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening, and we have not received any disclosures of pecuniary interest. So we'll roll right into the planning portion of the meeting, and I'll pass it over to Planning Services.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Judy, I'm not sure if Meredith was putting up the slides. Yeah. Great, thank you. Planning meeting process. So the process to be followed for each application will be as follows. The clerk will announce each individual planning item. The clerk will advise if any written submissions have been received regarding a planning item. If so, the clerk will read the written submissions that have been received. For any items where written submission is received, the administration will proceed with the presentation. Council will be asked if it has any questions of administration or the applicant if present. Council will then be asked what action it wishes to take with regards to the item. Notice. If any person or public body that files an appeal of the decision of council in respect of the proposed applications does not make a written submission to the municipal clerk of the corporation of the municipality of Chatham-Kent before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal a decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal if otherwise eligible, unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party to the appeal. Notice of passing. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. All persons who have made a request or who have made a submission regarding a particular planning item will receive a notice of council's decision, including appeal procedures. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of decision must submit a written request to the municipal clerk.
Thank you. We'll move to 10A. Applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment. Graham Smith and Amanda Jenin, 24511 Prince Albert Road, Community of Chatham Township, North Kent. Mr. Mayor, we have not received any deputations on this application, and the applicant is on the line.
Councillor Foss and Councillor McGrail, can I get you to move this, please?
Also move, Your Worship.
And I'd be happy to second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes 18-0. Next application, 10B, application for consent and zoning bylaw amendment. Lindsay Boyd and John and Annie Tesley, 19434 and 19560 Erio Road, Community of Harwich, South Kent. Mr. Mayor, there are no deputations on the matter and the applicant is on the line.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Latimer, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-1. 10C, application for consent and zoning bylaw amendment. Gail Boker, 8652 Talbot Trail, Community of Harwich, South Kent. Mr. Mayor, no deputations were received on this application and the agent is on the line.
Councillor Latimer and Councillor Thompson, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved.
And happy to second.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
Madam Clerk, just a quick point of order. The last one I was a yes on. I had a little bit of a malfunction, and this one here I'm not able to vote, so I am a yes as well. I just, for some reason, it's not coming up properly.
Okay, thank you. We'll note in the minutes. So all votes
Thank
are
you.
in, and the motion passes 18-0. And the final planning application for this evening, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Barry and Angela Calhoun, 23189 Walker Road, Community of Chatham City, and there are no deputations on this matter, and the applicant is on the line.
Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Crew, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move it.
Second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Madam Clerk, same issue. I'm a yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That all votes are in then, and motion passes 18-0. Mr. Mayor, that concludes the planning portion of the meeting.
With that, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Oh, just to note, I know this is something new, but for the record, we do not have any deputations on any items on the council portion of the agenda.
Okay,
So-
well, okay, go ahead.
So now we'll have the consent agenda. So the items that we have pulled this evening are items 16A, Climate Change Action Plan, Milestone 2 Report. That's pulled for a presentation and by Councillor Thompson. We also have item 19B, the Fleet Garage Final Costing. That's been pulled by Councillor Finn. Item 19C, Garbage and Recycling Contract Extension, Inflationary Increase, is pulled by Councillor Sakachi. Item 19E, the 2022 Arena Asset Lifecycle Projects, is pulled by Councillor Sakachi. And finally, 19M, the 2022 Trails Active Transportation and CASO Trail Lifecycle Projects, is pulled by Councillor Harrigan. Therefore, the remaining reports are on the consent agenda this evening, and they are 13A, 14A and B, 15A, B, C, 16B, 17AB, 18AB, 19A, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and 20A.
Councillor Wright and Councillor Oche, can I get you to move this, please?
I'll move that, Mayor. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Sakachi?
Yep, I think it went through okay, Judy.
Oh, did it? Okay,
Yes.
there we go. All votes are in, and motion passes 18-0.
We'll go to item 16, Community Development.
16A, Climate Change Action Plan, Milestone 2 Report. We have a presentation by Gabriel Clark and Huda Oda.
Hey, good afternoon, Council. Righty, so this presentation is going to be delivered by myself and Gabriel Clark, the Manager of Growth and Sustainability. My name is Huda Oda. I am the Manager of Recycling Climate Change with IES. So if I could just give an overview of our presentation, it's going to have three very quick parts. Part one is going to summarize a recent corporate engagement. Part two and part three, which will be delivered by Gabriel, will give an overview of the recent community engagement activities as well as an announcement of the upcoming council engagement. So with that, I'd like to highlight just a couple of corporate engagement activities in this part. And the first is a stand-up business plans for municipal divisions. So our team looked at the 2018 to 2022 business plans. The goal was to assess how the climate action is integrated in existing municipal operations and identify existing efforts that may be supported by the Climate Change Action Plan, or the CCAP. We also looked at opportunities to incorporate climate action and how they can benefit each division in this exercise. And we concluded that the majority of the actions within the business plans align with municipal operations within that division, which is expected, but really the focus was primarily on reducing energy use and diverting more waste, i.e. in recycling. And so this presents a significant opportunity for us as the Climate Change Action Plan team to look at climate action in the corporation through sustainable procurement, sustainable project design, and policy development. Another activity we had was a corporate-wide survey conducted last year between August and September. It was open for all CK employees, and it aimed at understanding staff's opinions about climate change and to gain their input on corporate priorities in terms of climate mitigation. So with that, we had 114 respondents during that period. And I'd like to note here that staff identified financial and human resources, technical expertise, and training opportunities as the primary 3 barriers for more corporate action related to climate protection. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Gabriel.
There we go. So thanks, Huda. In this part, I will provide a brief overview of the community engagement activities that were recently undertaken for the Climate Change Action Plan project. There we go. So on December 22nd of last year, the online engagement platform went live to solicit input from the public on priorities and focus areas for the Climate Change Action Plan. The engagement sought input from the public on their general views on the issue of climate change, issues related to precipitation, such as flooding, erosion, and drought, issues related to outdoor temperatures, such as hot days, heat waves, and cold snaps, extreme weather, energy use for transportation and buildings in the community, nature-based solutions, as well as opportunities and barriers for taking action. The platform remained live until January 31st of this year, and throughout this time, approximately 500 residents participated in the survey. The ultimate goal of the survey was to provide Council with a body of community input that could serve as a reference point as it works to determine the priorities for the Climate Change Action Plan through the upcoming Council engagement that I will touch on in a few slides. In order to raise awareness about the survey, the following actions were taken. I'll just pull them up here. There we go. So a corporate press release was issued to coincide with the launch of the survey. A one-page description of the engagement was provided to the Chatham-Kent Community Leaders Cabinet. A social media campaign spanning the duration of the survey was launched and managed by our colleagues in the Corporate Communications Department. Amplification of the social media campaign was supported by a number of community partners, including the Chatham-Kent Public Libraries, the Chatham-Kent Community Health Centres, the Chatham-Kent Ontario Health Team, the CK Powder the Y Committee, and the Kent Federation of Agriculture. Additional promotion was provided through the Chatham-Kent Public Library branches, including project posters, handouts distributed to patrons at the checkout counter, and mentions of the availability of Wi-Fi and public access computers to fill out the survey. Then finally, a radio ad campaign that included staff interviews was undertaken on CFCO and CKSY. A big thank you to the Corporate Communications Department and to all of the local organizations for their support in promoting the engagement. And then in this final part of the presentation, I will review the Council engagement process that is upcoming, and then touch on the next steps for the Climate Change Action Plan project. There we go. So tomorrow morning, Council will receive an email with a secure link to the online engagement platform. The goal of this engagement, as outlined in the terms of reference that were presented to Council in November of 2019, is for Council to determine the priorities and focus areas for the Climate Change Action Plan. The input provided by each councillor will directly inform a future recommendation to Council to officially determine the priority areas for the Climate Change Action Plan. The platform will be open for 2 weeks, launching tomorrow morning and closing at midnight on April 18th. In terms of structure, the survey contains a section on general priorities, along with more specific sections on community-focused priorities and priorities for the municipal corporation. Finally, with regards to next steps, I'll just pull them all up here. Okay, finally, There we go. So the results of the council engagement with a recommendation to officially set the priorities for the Climate Change Action Plan should be ready for the June 20th council meeting. After that, the next employee engagement focused on climate adaptation is being set up for later on this spring. And then for the summer, the second community engagement process focused on obtaining input on actions to address the council approved priorities will be launched. And then the final council engagement process designed to determine the actions that will make their way into the actual climate change action plan document will occur depending on how the previously mentioned steps ultimately unfold. So with that, I will end the presentation and open up the floor to any questions or comments that council may have. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much to Huda and Gabriel for putting this together. Just in general, as I read through the report and especially the results of the engagement piece, were there any takeaways for you or any surprises within that?
Huda, do you want to go first?
Sure. Maybe I'll touch base on one glaring trend that we saw in the corporate engagement among staff. And a lot of the answers were chosen to be either neutral or not sure, which speaks to the gap, I think, of knowledge, of real understanding of climate change and corporate operations. So I think we have a big opportunity to cover that gap and try and bridge it in training, future training, development, and education. Thanks.
Thanks, Huda. Through the mayor and to the councillor, I think one of the surprises, especially with the way that energy prices have gone in the last few months, is that they were maybe not as, they were a priority and a concern, but maybe not as high as I would now anticipate the results to be.
Thank you. I was quite surprised to see that people weren't worried about flooding. They weren't worried about extreme weather events, especially when most of Chatham and Tilbury and Wallaceburg is all sitting on the side of floodplain. How do we shift that? And Huda touched on it a little bit. How do we change or teach people a little bit about the actual real world everyday impacts that are facing our community?
I think that's a great question, Councillor, and that's one that has been a big focus of this project throughout, both at the community level that I've been leading and at the corporate level that Huda's been leading. A focus of both of our efforts has been to build a shared understanding and I guess to educate about the local impacts of climate change as well as locally beneficial actions to address some of those issues. So, the results of the engagement do speak to the opportunities that exist to continue with those efforts as the climate change action planning process rolls on, and also likely subsequent to, when we shift to implementation and after the planning process is done. That's a good question.
Excellent. And just a follow-up and a final question for you. Where are we going after the engagement work is finished?
May I ask, Councillor, which engagement work are you talking about? Are you referring
I'm referring to all of the engagements, all of the plan. Like, what are the concrete steps, and when will those start to take place, do you think?
Well, that's kind of up to Council's discretion. What makes its way into the final plan will be determined on council-approved priorities. And I'm suspecting that part of that, those questions will be answered by or informed by the resources that are required and savings that might be incurred both for the corporation and at the community level as we investigate potential courses of action. So, all of the engagements to date have been provided tonight to council's or for council's information, so that we might provide a body of evidence or of input that might serve council's decision-making process as it embarks on the determination of priorities for the climate change action plan through this engagement that will be launched tomorrow. And that will really set the stage for, the remaining steps of the project. Huda, if you have anything to add, please go ahead.
Yes, I'll just add a couple of things. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think even beyond that, once we do have a formulated plan and hopefully it does go through council and its approval, with that, in terms of education and spreading the word, we will have activities both in the community realm and corporate realm that do focus on building capacity and raising awareness, as well as aligning current, say, for example, corporate operations with climate change goals that will be adopted and approved by council for us to give direction for the rest of the corporation and the community on, for that matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to see where this goes in the future. I'm really always interested in the cost savings to the community, to the municipality, reducing flood risk as well, and just focusing on better planning. Just a comment or two. I sat down with a gentleman recently talking about the diversion channel that protects most of South Chatham. And while it's not really a climate change project, it never was, it is something that keeps a lot of people safe on that side of town. And there isn't a lot of knowledge around it. At the LTVCA, we have pictures dating all the way back to the before times of the mid-1980s, where that entire side of town would flood in rainstorms. There's pictures of the no-frills, with 2-3 feet of water. And as we move forward, I think it's important that we recognize that climate change is real. It is happening. And it isn't always about the lofty ambitions of saving the world's climate or taking a look at those sorts of carbon sequestration matters that are really, by and large, out of our hands. It can be about protecting our community and mitigating risks. So thank you very much for all the hard work. I do look forward to filling out that survey tomorrow.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Great. Thanks, Gabe and Huda, for the presentation. Just my question is actually quite quick. I'm wondering if in filling out the survey, if it is the type of survey that is one and done, or if because it's an individual link, we can return to it over time. I'm thinking about the information in the report, and there was just a lot to digest. So I feel like I've kind of skimmed over it a few times, and I want to make sure I'm as prepared as I can be for completing it.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Through the Mayor, the survey will record your results as you proceed. So you're able to return multiple times, and then when you're satisfied with the answers, then you can click the submit button at the end.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My questions have somewhat been answered by Councillor Thompson. There was a couple. I was surprised by some of the responses in regards to the drought factors as well as the flooding factors. I guess my quick question would be to Huda is that some of these questions are very, they're very neutral. The answers are very neutral. And during the public engagement and the further consultation, if the comments come back, fairly neutral, like they've already been responded to in a larger demographic, I guess my question would be, what would you then look at for, your action plan if these items come back fairly neutral?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would look at where people feel more strongly as the focus, and then if there are a lot of the issues that need more discussion and the answers to that are neutral, then that means there's not enough information for discussion to even begin. So then our approach would be to try and provide that information for discussion. So try and connect with the different stakeholders that need that information, have more open discussions, and then maybe we'll get more direction from them after that. Because obviously, if I am not sure about whether or not flooding is an issue in my community, then I choose neutral. If I hear or if I listen and if I get educated on that matter, I may choose yes or no the second time around I'm asked. Thank you.
Thank you. And as to Councillor Harrigan's point as well, obviously with being a 110-plus page report, I skimmed through it myself. My last question is just going to be kind of geared towards moving forward. Is there going to be any weight allocated to kind of where the respondents are taking the survey. Obviously, if some residents are in an area that's not prone to flooding or environmental challenges, they're going to have a kind of quite different comments and selection compared to somebody who's maybe in an area that has seen significant challenges. So, is there going to be kind of like moving forward, is there going to be a little bit of, weight calculation, kind of where the people's filling them out is located?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Scacchi. That's a very good question. So the intent of the community engagement survey was to, like I said, to provide council with a body of information at its disposal, so that it might, refer to it as it sees fit while it proceeds through the engagement process that will be launched tomorrow morning. That was the intent of the community engagement process that's been completed to date. Part of the so that's kind of with regards to the engagement process that's occurred. Part of the question the questions that we're going to be asking council, or that are included in the engagement process, touch on exactly that. So, are there certain potential areas within the municipality that are more important than, or that you are aware of, that are at higher risk of certain climate impacts than others? The other thing that I would say is with regards to, things like flooding and erosion, for example, part of the intent of the Climate Change Action Plan is to develop a land use policy framework that would inform the next official plan update, particularly with regards to lower carbon and climate resilient directions that are contained in the provincial policy statement. So while part of the work might be started on those issues with the Climate Change Action Plan, the information generated through this planning process as it pertains to land use will be carried over into the official plan update during its development.
Okay, thank you very much, and I appreciate the report and the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 19, infrastructure and engineering services.
19B, fleet garage final costing.
Councillor Finn and Councillor B. McGregor, can I get you to move this, please?
I'd like to move this.
Seconded.
Okay, Councillor Finn, you had a question?
Yeah, just one. I sent it over to Sharir earlier, and thank you for the response. But if he could explain the reasoning behind the additional charges or the new additions that were added after the plan was approved.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'm Shahir Alam, the manager of Fleet Services. To start off with, projects of this magnitude will usually have changes come along as they go. So before the project even began, Fleet Services and the architect team, along with the construction firm, identified some changes that needed to be made to meet fleet requirements, as well as comply with city standards and regulations. Items such as stormwater management and the fire-rated walls, along with the water meter and the upsizing of water mains and hydrants, were all city standards that needed to be met before this building could be constructed. Other items such as altering ceiling fans, grading the changes, side grading changes, along with the revision of air compressor were done because fleet needed better specs as far as that is concerned. In terms of addition, none of these items were missed or anything, but what happened is some of these were basically needed for the completion of the project. These were operational requirements. Items such as relocating the hoist, supplying and installation of power washer, and basically the installation and supplying of furniture were all needed to make the fleet garage operational. Other than that, an item that was caused due to COVID was basically the winter heating cost, which wasn't on the original tender, but came along because there were delays in completion of the project. Also, a part of the site had to be excavated and filled as the original soil was in bad condition.
Thank you. That was my only question, Your Worship.
Councillor Latimer, followed by Councillor Oche.
Thank you, through the mayor. I wanted to say thank you to Shahir and Tim Dick for answering my questions that I sent through on this report. But I did wonder, is there any opportunity for council members to take a tour through this now $4.5 million facility?
I mean, unless someone's stopping you guys, I will definitely be fine with it.
Well, could I leave that with yourself and Mr. Dick and the powers to be to arrange something for us? Because I would like to see it. I think it'd be a wonderful opportunity for us to see the facilities, the new facility that's there on Park Ave East. Thank you.
Mayor Caniff, it's Tim Dick, if I might. Certainly, we had thought about it, and we've actually talked about it, Councillor, getting, having an open house of sorts, or at least an opportunity. We'll definitely do that. It's just that we haven't been able to do that. So we love to do that and show you what's there, and we definitely will schedule something in the future and make sure that all the council's invited, hopefully, and is able to make it out. We might even have some refreshments or something as well. So we'll definitely get something organized in the future.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Councillor Oche.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship, to Shahir. Did you say that some of these things were noticed before we even started to really do construction on the garage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, some of these items were noticed prior to basically the building of the garage. I will be honest, and I probably I'm not in the best position to answer this question as I wasn't here at that time. But from what I understand, they did not meet the city requirements and had to be modified.
Thank you. So I guess this would be to, through you, Your Worship, to Tim Dick. Why was this not brought back to council then at that time, since you already knew that there was going to be extra expenses, plus the fact that like putting in a high pressure water system for probably, I'm assuming, for washing the trucks and that, but I don't know how as a Chatham-Kent entity that we wouldn't know what needed to be done to meet code. That kind of baffles me. So,
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So it's Tim Dick again. So let me try to explain a little bit. The term not known about is not quite right. So in the report, what we tried to do with the report was break it down into two charts. Chart number one were for change orders to the original contract. So those were items identified in the contract. So I apologize to council if it was misleading. It was not intended to be that way. So for example, just to elaborate slightly, alter the ceiling fans, the first item. So that was a COVID issue. We could not get the originally spec'd ceiling fans. So we had to make a call on the scene or at the time and so on to alter the ceiling fans. And it was a huge supply issue that, and you've got a limited window to be able to install the ceiling fans and so on, timing-wise, with respect to the overhead crane. Just as another example, supply and installation of stormwater separators, subdrains, and flow control devices. We added those items in. That was actually a call that Kevin Rankin and myself made when it became clear, when council decided to make the sale of the former public works spot to the Enbelay Group. We upsized the size of the water lines and sanitary sewage lines, as well as the separators. to be adequate for that building as well. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but a number of those items were delays from the original tender. Items in number 2, and we thought about how we could maybe say this to help council understand it better. So in chart number 2, if we go back to the animal shelter, this is maybe a way that I can explain it. Remember the term FFE. So that stands for furniture, fixture, and equipment. So, for example, at the animal shelter, we did not include the cages, the washers, dryers, appliances, those types of things, and the furniture. It was all done separately. And that's what chart number 2 is in this report. So, with respect, I don't want to give the impression that we missed anything. This was a hugely challenging project because it started right at the time that COVID started. There was a lot of delays. We ran into some soil issues. We had to make some modifications and different things. But that's and in fairness to Shahir, he was not here for throughout that. So hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Ochi.
Just one other question, that you just brought it up actually, is the furniture. Why would we not include that in the quote? In like gas hookup and things like that. We know we got to pay it.
So with respect to the furniture, so those items are supplied through a separate supplier. And so had we included it, and that's why FF&E is typically not included, because remember, we're reaching out through the tender document to a general contractor to build a building. That general contractor is an expert in site preparation, in structural, construction, concrete, all of those sorts of things through either himself or his subtrades. He's not an expert in furniture, and he would have to go start chasing things down with furniture suppliers, hoist movers, mechanical engineers. So these people that are listed mainly in that second in chart number 2 provide special services, and it's best arranged separately, as like I said, with the animal cages and the others that we did with the animal shelter. So that's the reason why. And the other thing is you save money. He would have, we would have sent him basically on a chase to track this stuff down, and you would have paid, or we would have ultimately paid, a 15 or 20, whatever the markup would be, to him to get that service. And I'm not sure we would have gotten the service that we actually needed, because these guys may not be familiar, for example, of the requirements through Ministry of Labor with respect to moving and installing and maintaining hoists, for example.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just one quick question to Tim. Mr. Dick, just curious in regards to the miscellaneous aspect. So I see that there's a large portion. Is it possible just to like some of the large items that would be included in that? Is that the FF&E that you were just discussing in the miscellaneous portion?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'm going to ask Shahir to speak to this one. We sent an email to Councillor McGrail on this, and I don't have that email handy right in front of me to break it down a little bit more. Shahir, could you elaborate on some of those miscellaneous items, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Caniff. So I just have a list in front of me that was sent out. So we had addition of doors to the park room, fireproof drywall was added to the building. Tiling was done in lunchroom flooring for the mechanics. For the emergency generator for future use, we had mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work done. Due to the design change to the building, new sidewalks and curb entrance was added. These are basically the major costs.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to touch base on the miscellaneous and open. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-1. Next item is 19C, Garbage and Recycling Contract Extension, Inflationary Increase.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Bondi, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to second this, please?
Sure, Mayor Kenneth, happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Caniff. I think that Tim is on to just ask a quick question. So I'm just looking at the contract extension in that inflation, and just had a quick question. So one question I've been getting significantly is regarding the end of this contract, and if the municipality would ever at least investigate looking at bi-weekly garbage pickup. Not saying that's something that I'm supportive of, but the community is just inquiring to see if that would be something. We're talking about climate change and all these other different aspects, and just something that will be investigated when this extension of this contract is completed.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and thanks for the question, Councillor Sakachi. It's kind of timely with all the other discussions. So, as a matter of fact, we are right in the middle of our service review, which is happening. I believe service review meeting number 6 is on Thursday this week. And so we're working through all of the different aspects and components of how we would deliver the service going forward. As Council is aware, the province has already mandated changes to the Blue Box program, to the recycling program, and switched that to a service provider delivered service. So with respect to, how we will, what we will do is make recommendations to Council. We will choose a recommendation based on all the data that's collected. And I can assure you that biweekly collection has been a major part of the discussion so far. Now, typically, biweekly collection also goes with the term organics as well. So organics is a bit up in the air. The province has alluded to mandating it for urban areas, but what that will look like exactly is still not unknown, and it still isn't absolutely cast in stone. So again, it may be difficult to switch to a biweekly garbage collection. It definitely is impossible. I would say is very difficult or impossible to do unless it is coupled with supporting mechanisms in the recycling world, both traditional recycling that we're all used to, as well as potentially the organics that's coming down the pipe at some point, quite likely. So yes, it will be there. It may not be the recommendation that the committee lands on, but of course, Council always has that right. It's up to Council to set the policy. It's our job to make a recommendation based on all the data we've considered and the facts that we've worked through. So it will be definitely mentioned in the report and will be a consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. Yeah, and I guess my question was just geared to exactly that, just to ensure that at the end of the day, when these discussions are ended on this, the extension, and when things are finalized, that at least that's something that we visited as a municipality and we've taken into consideration. And we all know that costs, as well as other things that you mentioned, can be definitely a huge challenge. So it's just nice to know that it's something that's going to be at least investigated to see if it would be something that we can move forward with, or it doesn't just make prudent sense, right? So thank you.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mary Caniff. This question's a little off track, but it does concern garbage and recycling contract. So if I am off track, just stop me and I'll stop. Tim, I guess my question is, I've had a request from one person representing about 30 businesses on Richmond Street asking that the pickup be delayed until after 9 o'clock in the morning, because there's a bylaw which stipulates that the garbage cannot be put out prior to 7 o'clock at night. And that creates a logistical problem for them because they can't put. Okay, sorry, I heard
Yeah, Councillor Bondi, this is something maybe if you could send an email.
I did.
To Tim. And Tim, can you follow up with him on this? Because this is kind of off the agenda here. So
it is definitely, Mayor Caniff. We're aware of the we're aware of the issue, Councillor Bondi. Huda and I have been in communications. We will be getting an answer out shortly, and we are aware of the issue. So thank you for
great.
reminding us.
I just had the opportunity, so thank you very much. Okay, great. Thanks. I appreciate it, guys.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. Next item, 19E, 2022 Arena Asset Lifecycle Projects.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move it, Mayor Caniff.
Happy to second.
Councillor Sakachi, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a quick question to Rob Pollock. So Rob, being year end, I had the opportunity to attend several of our arenas over the last few weeks to watch, the finalization of leagues and tournaments. I think it's really important to note where it's, we're very appreciative of the projects moving forward, but, I do feel like, especially in Chatham proper, we are getting to the point where, you can only fix something so many times before it's broken for good. So I'm just, at the top of my head, I think our arenas in Chatham-Kent are about, I think, estimated around 50 years old, the average. And just wondering if there's kind of a succession plan that's starting to come forward. I know that we unfortunately that our last funding grant was not, we were not successful. So just looking at future kind of investigations and plans of what we're going to do, because I'm just, really kind of concerned that, there may be a catastrophic fail and then we're going to be in a very challenging situation. So just wondering if you can comment on any of that, Mr. Pollock.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Rob Pollock, the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Cemeteries. And yes, our arena's average age of all 10 of them is 50.8 years old, so they are aging. We are examining them and all of our options that we have, but all of them are aging. Our newest one is now 30 years old. So we're examining all of our options, but coming up in the future, we probably will have to examine all of our options, including updating our current ones, and if we need a new facility at a certain point, because they are getting up there in age. But I am examining those with our staff, and we'll be looking at all our options coming in the future.
And just my last question, I know that there's nothing, identified on the life cycle projects, but is there any, I'm not sure if maybe this question is more towards yourself or to Mr. T-Bear, is there any really significant challenges that you worry about that's not identified here that, with the age of our current facilities that you anticipate us getting into that's not, being asked for at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take this one again. With any aging infrastructure, there's always those challenges. We do our best to maintain them with the funds that we have, but we're doing engineering reports every 5 years on each one, doing the structural engineering, making sure that the foundation and the columns are in good condition. If there was a report that came back that was showing that something was wrong with the foundation or the overall structure of one of the facilities, then that would be a very serious situation that we'd have to examine in a timely basis to determine the future of that facility. At this time, none of our reports have come back and gave us that, so all 10 are in good shape from the reports that we've gotten. But with any aging infrastructure and the rising costs, like we've been talking about on other items, it's going to be more expensive to replace and maintain, especially with 10 different facilities. That's 10 different compressor rooms, 10 different Zambonis, ice resurfacers. So yes, we're looking at updating the compressor rooms and stuff like that. But with an underfunded life cycle and increasing costs, we will run into some situations in the future that we'll have to address. But at this time, we don't have any sort of structural or main issues that we're looking at.
Thank you, Rob. I greatly appreciate the those comments. It's just, I guess just wrapping up my comments is that, I do feel that I know the challenging, landscape that we're currently at with rising costs and all the challenges that we've seen, especially, even with the user groups and the reduction in users is, the actual people that utilize the ice surfaces and that. I just really feel that we're getting ourselves into a situation where we're kind of behind the eight ball, so to speak, if we continue to kind of patchwork on these very, very aging facilities. And, we've seen it this year when there were some ice surfaces that were delayed for some large maintenance reports. And I just really hope that, we start to become more geared towards having, I know it's going to be expensive, but eventually we're going to have to do something significantly here. So I do appreciate your time and appreciate all the work that's going to go into the arenas in the upcoming year. Thank you.
Chris, you had a comment to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Chris Teber, Acting General Manager, IES right now. Just an overall kind of comment to Councillor Sakachi's point there, and just really want to highlight the importance, of course, of our asset management plan. So one of the key components is asset management planning, proper life cycle funding for all of our assets in Chatham-Kent, making sure that we put away the proper money so that when the time does come to do a significant improvement to any of our assets, that we're ready and that we're not caught off guard. So just really want to stress the importance of that because we are quite underfunded in that particular category. One thing that we are working on right now, high level, is provincial updates for the asset management plan. So we're going to be doing a very comprehensive review of all of our assets and as well as all of our arenas, and bringing that forward to council in the coming years here to satisfy the Ontario regulations. And that's going to put in front of council a level of service requirement as well as some funding requirements for all of our assets, and kind of set the stage and set the milestones for us for the future for exactly that purpose.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put this to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. Final report, 19M, 2022 Trails Active Transportation and CASO Trail Lifecycle Projects.
Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Kirkwood White, can I get you to move this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Happy to move it.
Happy to second.
Councillor Harrigan, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Again, I believe this is through to you, to Rob, or perhaps Genevieve if she's online. The question I just had was about the appendix in the report. There were two trails that were identified both in West Kent. One was the Memorial Park Trail, which I believe is the sidewalk from Poole to Stewart Street, and the other one was the Wheatley Recreation Trail. It just wasn't clear to me if the work being done this year was the trails in their entirety or just as much as we can fund.
This is Genevieve here, through to you, Mayor. The Trails Life Cycle is to fund the entirety of the Memorial Park Trail in Tilbury, and then it is also essentially a supplementary request because we did get that Canada Benefit grant for the Wheatley Recreational Trail. So should the pricing come in above what I estimated, just due to the economic standing of where we are in the world right now, I just wanted to make sure that we had a little bit more funding available to complete that trail in its entirety.
Great, thank you so much. I know there's lots of residents in both those communities who will be really excited to see those improvements and additions. The next question I have is actually with regards to all of the life cycle projects in 19M through to Mr. Quinton, I believe, or one member of his team. Just wanting to ask the question for clarity for anybody who may be watching or who might have read some of the news reports around the money being spent. Can you confirm or explain how it is that we budget for life cycle projects and whether or not there's any kind of new money being requested through these projects that we were discussing this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. So, as Chris Teaver was mentioning in the earlier report, we do have our life cycle requirements, and we are in the works of updating those again and getting what the current requirements are now that we've experienced high rate inflation for the last few years on life cycle. But that's the life cycle plan where we're at budgets. We're not talking about the projects. We're talking about the allotment for each category. And up now, we're talking about the trails category. But it's the same for roads and bridges and everything. We bring it together as a group, and we have a council-approved action plan that now needs to be updated for 2022 of how can we get to be fully funded on this so that we can do all the repairs that are necessary to keep an asset in top shape. But similar to roads, arenas, and all our categories, we are underfunded. And so these reports that you see tonight are from Rob Pollock's group in recreation facilities. And the reason why you're seeing those, and you see the same for roads and bridges and other things, is it's also the council-approved reserve policy, where at budget we put money aside in these life cycle reserves. Now we're getting council's approval to bring the money out to actually spend it on these projects that are individually listed. So it's not asking for new money. This is part of the life cycle plan that was approved at budget. This is each director doing the best they can with the allotment that they received.
Great, thanks, Gordon. It's always helpful for the reminder of how the policy planning and spending works, and then also that we do have far to go in terms of maintaining every community asset that we had at that 100% level. And I do just want to say, I think I really appreciate members of the community who understand. This year is the first time I actually had people comment to say, oh, I didn't see anything in this area, but last year we got something, so that makes sense that we need to spread the wealth a little bit. And I just think that that's really nice to see our community members recognizing that there's many corners of Chatham-Kent, and we want to make them all look as great as they can and have these recreation assets. So thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
With that, we'll move to notice of motion. We'll start with Councillor Sakachi and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Anthony Sakachi, will bring the following motion at the April 25th, 2022 Council meeting. Whereas Let's Talk Chatham-Kent currently is taking feedback regarding pickleball courts, and it was identified that Blenheim was not in final consideration for a pickleball court due to community needs, current recreational assets in the community, existence of pickleball groups for organized play, locations with appropriate space for court construction, accessibility and parking availability, and whereas staff has also identified existing tennis courts in Blenheim, and whereas the existing tennis courts at the rear of Blenheim District High School are not municipal property and not being fully utilized, and whereas there are limited outdoor recreation options for residents in Blenheim, now therefore be it resolved, Council hereby directs administration to contact the Chatham-Kent District School Board to explore options for improved community use of these tennis courts, which may include reestablishments of the tennis courts or establishment of an alternative outdoor recreation use, such as basketball nets, etc. And council directs that administration return to council with an update regarding these discussions and any potential municipal involvement in acquiring this property, leasing this property, or entering into an agreement respecting community use of this area.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have a pair. The first one is thus. I, Councillor Trevor Thompson, will bring forward the following motion at the April 25th, 2022 council meeting. Whereas pickleball has become one of the fastest growing sports among residents of Chatham-Kent, and whereas provincial funding has been provided to cover the majority of costs for 10 new courts in Chatham-Kent, and whereas a number of communities, including but not limited to Blenheim, Tilbury, Wheatley, Thamesville, Ridgetown, and Bothwell, were not included in the recommendations for these new pickleball courts, be it resolved that administration examine, seek public feedback through public consultation, and return with recommendations and funding options on how we can get pickleball courts into more rural communities, and that report returned by September of 2022 with an expectation on construction in 2023, pending budget and funding opportunities. That's the first one. The second one is I, Councillor Trevor Thompson, will bring forward the following motion at the April 25th, 2022 council meeting. Whereas rural and agritourism, rural manufacturing, and rural commercial enterprises have seen tremendous growth over the last decade, and whereas foresight and pre-planning are paramount in sustaining and supporting our rural economy in a changing economic and geographic landscape, and whereas more than 16,000 jobs directly rely on rural economic activity in our municipality, and whereas historically municipal programs such as the CIP have been inaccessible to rural entrepreneurs and business owners, and whereas the municipality has been without an agricultural specialist on staff since 2019, and whereas the timing is right to have a new advisory committee begin during the new term of council 2022 through 2026 with advisory committee appointments, be it resolved that council approve the establishment of an ongoing advisory committee of council to explore, make recommendations, provide guidance, and offer strategies and options in supporting and enhancing Chatham-Kent's rural economy, and that administration prepare a report to council for the approval of the terms of reference for the proposed advisory committee outlining its work, membership, etc. The report should return by June of 2022 to allow for the inclusion of the 2022-2026 council committee appointment process.
Okay, with that, we'll move to closed session reports. Councillor Hall, and then Councillor Crew, going to get you second that.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Council closed session report for Monday, April 4th, 2022. Absent was Councillor Solman. Council directed administration on proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase part of property identification number 009390038 Prince Street, Community of Blenheim, Section 239 2C of the Municipal Act, and proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase property identification number 005020111 30 Adelaide Street North, Chatham, Section 239 of the Municipal Act. And that's so moved, Mayor Cannon.
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Okay, we'll move to non-agenda business. Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I do have some questions directed, I believe, to Mr. Ryan Brown. There was a status update provided on the current situation in Wheatley, and I am just wondering two things. One, if you can confirm if there have been any updates since that status update has been provided, and two, if the project team still feels we are on schedule for that mid-May timeline that was shared with residents in the last large community meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Ryan Brown, Director of Public Works. To answer your question, in short, yes, the team, which includes the province, feels that we are still on track with those dates. Since the status update last week, the oil and gas drilling contractor has been on site. They had to procure a few additional materials to complete their setup, but everything is now on site. The derrick has been stood, and they are preparing for an imminent to actually turn the drill on. So there has been some minor delays since that announcement last week, but overall, that contractor, as mentioned in the release, is starting to drill out APEC 2, which is the gas well in the municipal parking lot. And they anticipate they're going to be around 2 weeks on that well. And as mentioned in previous releases, there's 2 other wells on the site that we found through the investigation that contractor needs to move on to. Obviously, once we learn more information, we will share that and provide those updates to the community, including in a forum for asking questions like we've done in the past. But I think that should help answer your question.
Chief Case, did you want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Councillor, to support Ryan's work with the engineering team, whilst all of this is going on, we currently have a review taking place into safety procedures. And as we always say, every time work takes place on the site, we are looking at the evacuation zone, how it is impacted, and that continual work is taking place, and we'll do so at least for the next week or two whilst this engineering operation continues. But there is a lot of activity on site, and there is a lot going on. So we are seeing a lot of we're seeing a lot of things moving on the site right now, and the community will see that as they were advised a week or two ago by the door-to-door campaign. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Harrigan, anything else? Okay, Councillor Latimer, followed by Councillor McGrail.
Thank you. Through the mayor, last call for the 2022 Chatham-Kent Senior of the Year Award. The nominations are closed tomorrow, Tuesday, April the 5th. All nominees will be honored and the winner announced at the June 1st Chatham-Kent Celebration of Older Adults event, where you can join us virtually on the Chatham-Kent Facebook page or through your TV. So get your nominations in, please.
Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I have had a couple phone calls in relation to volunteer groups having to still pay for COVID tests. When will we be seeing this kind of going away now that masks are gone and things are changing? Like, what is the municipal stance? And in relation to what the phone calls were the volunteer firefighters. So I was wondering if you could, or if Chief Case or Kathy can give us kind of an update of where that's going, or any thoughts on that, please.
Mr. Mayor, it's Kathy Hoffman. I'm happy to take that question. Mr. Mayor, would you like me to proceed?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Kathy Hoffman, General Manager of Corporate Services and Chief Human Resources Officer. Thank you, Councillor McGrail, for your question about this matter. We have been in the process at the municipality of keeping a steady course on our current municipal vaccination and testing policy and our various COVID protocols through the months of March and April. And we will be reassessing where we are at with all of those protocols, at the policy, etc., during the month of April. And we'll be making some announcements before the end of the month in preparation for the start of May. Right now, we have not yet decided whether or not we're going to be doing the exact same things we're doing or making any additional adjustments. We did make a few adjustments to some of our protocols in the last month, but for the most part have kept on with our policy and testing, our vaccination and testing policy, due to our own particular circumstances in our own organization. So you'll see some organizations are ready to make some different changes. We at Chatham-Kent are going completely by our numbers and our situation, and that's what we'll let our decisions be driven by. So the executive management team will have a chance to meet late in April to review these current practices, and then we'll make a decision thereafter. Does that answer your question, Councillor McGrail?
Yes, but I just have one more question to clarify, because I think there was a misconception. will this have to come through council, like the deletion of negative COVID tests, or will this be just put for the volunteer firefighters, or will this be a policy through the municipality itself?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The ones specifically related to the volunteer firefighters that you're talking about will just go through the administrative policy process. The policy that's related to how you applied the policy to council and your committees of council will come to council.
Okay, and I was 99% sure of that, but I just wanted to clarify because I think there's some little misconception on the volunteer firefighter side. But that's great. That's what I needed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Is Ryan Brown still on the call, Mayor Caniff, by chance?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Caniff. I did speak with Ryan briefly last week, and unfortunately, the meeting was extremely long, so I did not want to take any more time during open agenda. I think, as all councillors in the rural area, we understand the challenges that come with having a lot of gravel roads and dirt roads in our area. And I just wanted to speak with Ryan to see if this year has been a little bit more challenging for his crew with the conditions than normal. I've received more concerns this year around South Kent, especially near kind of south of Talbot Trail, more this year than I have in the past 3 years combined. And I just wanted to see if it's because of maybe the elements or kind of what has transpired to cause so many significant challenges.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Ryan Brown, Director of Public Works. So our gravel road condition this year is probably a little different than most have seen in the last couple of years, with that this winter, particularly back in December, January timeframe, we had significant cold without snow. And when you have those conditions, -20 with windy days, it put a lot of frost in the ground around Chatham-Kent. And when frost gets into the road, it stays there until around this time. And when it starts to warm up and that frost comes out on a gravel road, I'm sure you've all seen it. That's what really we call them frost boils. But you can see, rutting slop on top of the road, and it often appears in patches, inconsistent down a road. It's incredibly challenging to deal with. We have the tools to do it. It's just every road almost needs a drag or a grader almost every week, it seems. But those conditions do improve. It's been warmer lately. It's a little rainy today, but when we get the wind and some sun, those conditions will dry out. The frost will go away, and our crews are there, and things will get better over time. It has been challenging these past, I'm going to say, 4 weeks, but I can assure you all our different divisions have all their equipment out. If residents do have a road that is in dire condition, please call 311 and report that. My supervisors are out there, and they generally know the conditions, but like I said, sometimes they can go down a road on Monday, and by Friday, it needs it again. So they have to constantly reassess what roads need it. So I'm really hopeful that the worst is behind us. You are going to see at a subsequent council meeting soon the gravel tender award, which comes every year around this time for us to start applying gravel in late spring and early summer. So those conditions are hopefully going to get better, and we definitely are out there trying to make the best of the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And the main reason why I'm asking in open is just to assure the public that there has been some misconception that maybe that we've altered the service level this year, and maybe scaled back a little bit. But you just clarified that it really is an environmental issue in regards to the challenges that we face from a weather standpoint. And then my last question is just going to be directed to Mr. Teever or yourself possibly. So we're all very aware in Chatham-Kent regarding the evaluations we do and the pavement index on our paved roads, and we've seen some reports recently to council for the tar and chip, etc. So my question would be, is the municipality always doing ongoing efforts to evaluate the bases and the different kinds of mitigation potential for our gravel roads as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Historically, those base conditions have not been assessed on gravel roads. We have very limited information of how they were constructed, and the gravel road conditions are generally assigned by the area road supervisors doing the maintenance on top. There's not as extensive as an engineering approach like the engineering department would do on paved roads. But that's something we are trying to address all the time. That's part of the reason you'll see our gravel tender is we purchase so many tons to over several decades try to build up that gravel base on roads, which helps us in this time of year when the conditions are poor.
Thank you, Mr. Round. So just to summarize, the crew is out there doing the best job that they can right now. It's just, the challenges that we face this year. And, they're going to continue to go out there in service. And like you said, if you have any issues, we are listening. We are trying to prevent these challenges. It's just, we're up against it when it comes to some of the certain elements. So I do appreciate your comments and all your hard work in addressing these issues when I brought them forth. Thank you.
Yes, there's a couple things that I have. I just quickly I was hoping that we could get a report for next council meeting, at least maybe just even a verbal update on the naming rights. I know that we had something about a year ago that we approved a consultant to come in and start look at naming things and generate funds from that. And from a timing perspective, the 3rd Street Bridge is due to open up shortly. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get someone to name that bridge? But there's a number of assets, so I was just hoping from that we could at least get a verbal update for next meeting.
Happy to provide that, Mr. Mayor. It's Kathy Hoffman.
Thank you very much. The second thing, this is a big meeting, and it's a big meeting to the extent that our CAO, Don Shropshire, this will be his last meeting as CAO. So I've had the privilege of working with him for over 7 years now, 4 as councillor and over 3 as mayor. And he's going to be sorely missed. I know from my personal perspective, he's done a lot for the community. When you look at all the challenges that he's went through over the last several years, the Erie Shore Drive, Wheatley, this thing called COVID, a number of different things. But as we look forward, the growth in Chatham-Kent is is tied to his leadership, and the municipality administration and things that his leadership has driven us to that point. As I look at, when I do the math, it's about 300 council meetings that he went through or something. And if you took 3 1/3 hours per council meeting, that's equivalent to 40 days or 40 nights. So I don't know whether that's a sign of something else, but he spent a lot of time in council meetings, and he's been a fantastic ambassador for CK. He's been CAO for 10 years. He started back in 2009. He will be missed, and we wish him all the best. He still hasn't given us any indication of what his retirement plans are, what he's going to do. I know he's going to spend a lot of time with his grandkids, but he's talked a little bit about wanting to be a lifeguard at the municipality. I understand that he was quite the swimmer in his day when he was young. So, Don, if you wanted to come back as a lifeguard, I'm sure that April and her team could find a space for you somewhere. And with that, Don, I want to pass the floor to you one last time to say whatever you like.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll avoid the coming back as a lifeguard. I don't want to scare the children. But I do sincerely want to thank Council for the trust and confidence in appointing me as a CAO. It's been a privilege to serve this community for the last 10 years as CAO and for a few years before that as a general manager. And I'd be remiss if I didn't extend my thanks to the municipal team. Any of the accomplishments we've made over the past 12 and a half years have been the result of an incredibly dedicated team that wants to serve this community and make it better. And every day I feel inspired to come in and see how much people are giving, not just with the disasters, but keeping all the wheels on the bus when we have incredibly large geography that has lots of challenges, and notwithstanding all the emergency things we've had, people have done a phenomenal job to step up and do that in a way that just makes our community better and better. So really sincere thanks to the staff and I've really appreciated your support over the past time that I've served with the Chatham-Kent. And special thanks to my wife, Robin, for being incredibly supportive and understanding when the hours, bleed into the evenings and weekends and so on, that I couldn't have done it without her support. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing everyone in a new role that I'll be serving as a citizen. It'll be great.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
So on behalf of council, administration, citizens of CK, I want to thank you. Chatham-Kent's a better place because you were our CEO for the last 10 years, and you can tune in as now an armchair quarterback, and you can listen in and and talk about what you would have done in those decisions. But thank you again. With that, seeing no other non-agenda business items, we'll move to the reading of the bylaws first and second. Councillor Solomon and Councillor Pinsino. Can I get you to move that, please?
That's moved, Your Worship. That's seconded, Your Worship.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Third and final reading. Councillor Foss, Councillor McGrail. Can I get you to move that, please?
So moved, Your Worship.
So seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. We'll move to resolution of council in closed session and adjournment. Councillor Hall, then I'll have Councillor Finn top it off for us.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, April 25th, 2022, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act. Another note as well, that the April 11th, 2022 planning meeting and the Natural Heritage Committee of the whole meetings have been canceled.
And I'd be very happy to second that.
Okay, anyone opposed to adjourning at 7:22 p.m.? Hearing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Evening, everybody.